Hello everybody. Today we're going to go over a option or a functionality, whatever you'd like to call it or think of it as. This option or functionality in Excel is called data validation, and in Numbers it's called a pop-up menu, and you can think of it as a pop-up menu or a drop-down list. Or if you're used to data validation, then you can think of it as data validation. So first, let's show you how to access this in Numbers, and then we'll show you an example, and then we're going to go over to Google Sheets and show you how to access it in Google Sheets and show you a couple examples of that. Okay, so first thing first, to access the data validation or pop-up menu in Numbers, you want to go to the Format tab, and then go to the Cell tab, and then you want to go to the Data Format drop-down list here, and you want to choose Pop-up Menu. And from this window, this little input window here, you can enter your items that you would like to be included in the pop-up menu. There's a default list, so let's just show you what that looks like. When you click on the cell, you can click on this little arrow, and it will allow you to choose from this I like to think of it as a drop-down list, from this drop-down list, whatever items you'd like, and those are based on whatever you have put in here. And to add extra items, you just hit the plus, and to get rid of items, you just hit the minus. And there's also an option here where you can have it by default start with the first item in the list, or you can have it start with a blank item. Okay? So let's go ahead and show you an example here. Here we have a table of some data, and what we want to do is we want to put in some dates here, and then use a VLOOKUP formula to pull in data from this table. So we want to use our pop-up menu, drop-down list, data validation, whatever you want to call it, and we want the description of the weather forecast to change based on whatever we choose from our list. Okay, so here we have our list, and I want to just show you, I went ahead and I put these dates in this input window, and then I did a VLOOKUP formula to pull in data from this table. So whatever date I choose in my drop-down list or pop-up menu here will correspond to that date and pull in the weather forecast from this table here. So, for example, tomorrow, and these aren't real forecasts, they're just an example. The weather forecast says it's going to be 80 degrees and sunny. And then let's say I want to know what it's going to be 2 or 3 days out. So we'll go to October 2nd, and it will return using the VLOOKUP, and based on this date, using this data table, the weather is going to be 75 degrees with rain. And let's go to weather forecast for October 6th. The weather forecast, according to my fake data, is going to be 77 degrees, partly cloudy. Okay, so that's how you use what many people refer to as data validation in the Numbers application on the Mac. Of course, in Numbers, it's actually called a pop-up menu. So let's just recap. To access that, you click on a cell wherever you want to put it. You go to the Format cell, Data Format, and then choose Pop-up Menu. And if you want to do more than one cell at a time, you can actually select the cells, and you can have that pop-up menu appear in all of those selected cells. So you can see there's a pop-up menu for each one that we selected. Okay, so now let's move on over to Google Sheets and show you an example of how to use data validation or a pop-up menu / drop-down list over there. Here we are in Google Sheets, and we have two sets of data. We have some states data and some cars data. So what we want to do is we want to set up the data validation, and in Google Sheets it actually is called data validation, but whatever makes more sense to you, however you want to think about it, either data validation, a drop-down list, or a pop-up menu, you can call it whatever you'd like. Okay, so here we have a state, and we want to put in the data validation list in this cell, and then we want to use a VLOOKUP to return the capital. So to put in a data validation in Google Sheets, you can either do like a right click and choose it here, or you could go up to data and choose validation. Okay, and then the cell range is the cell or cells you want to put those drop-down lists in, and then the criteria is the data range you want to appear in those drop-down lists. So let's go ahead and choose that now. Go ahead. I like to just go ahead and, instead of entering it, I like to hit this, and then it allows me to select it. And this data is actually in another sheet, so let's click on this sheet, and let's go ahead and select. Oh, actually, we just want to select the state for this. So we've selected the column of all the states, because what we want to do is we want to click the drop-down list, click the state we want, and then have it return the capital. So click OK. And if you put in something that's not a state, or it's misspelled, like you try and type it in, this option allows you to show a warning. And everything else, well, I would leave this checked to display the drop-down button, display in cell button to show the list. Leave that checked. I mean, you don't have to, but that lets you know that there's data validation in that cell. Then you go ahead and hit save. And before we hit save, just know that to remove the data validation, you just kind of go backwards in the steps. So you select the ones you want to remove it from, the cell you want to remove it from, and hit the data validation by either right-clicking or go to data and then validation. And that will allow you to remove it by clicking this button. So let's go ahead and hit save. And we can go back to our data, and you can see our list of states now appears in that cell. So now let's use the VLOOKUP. Okay, so what do we want to look up? We want to look this up, and then the range of data we want to be included in the VLOOKUP. Let's go ahead and include the whole table. And then we want to return column 2, which is the capital. Go ahead and hit 0 or type in false to return exact match. And it says NA now because this cell's blank, but as soon as we put in a state, it will return the capital of that state. Okay? Pretty cool. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one more time. This will kind of serve as a recap or a summary. And we want to do it for cars and then return their prices. And before we do that, just know that these are just a couple examples of how you can use the data validation drop-down lists. There's all different kinds of ways that these can be useful in other formulas besides just the VLOOKUP. Just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how you access the data validation in numbers and in sheets, and a basic idea of how you can use it. Okay, so let's finish up here, and we want to choose data validation. Let's choose our data from another sheet. Let's use the cars. Hit OK. Everything else should be OK, so we can hit save. Put in the VLOOKUP. Choose the data to search. We want to return the price in column 2, 0 for false for an exact match. Of course, it says in A to start. Let's go ahead and choose. Say we want to know what the price is for the Tesla Model 3. And there you have it. Okay, so that's all we have for today for the data validation. And we'll see you next time.